I want to start today's video by describing a scenario that I know is going to resonate with a lot of parents watching this. You've had a hard day. You've been at work or managing the household or doing everything that needs doing. And then you come home and your child, your baby, your toddler, reaches straight past you for the other parent, or they push you away, or they cry when you try comforting them and immediately calm down the moment the partner takes over. And even though you know rationally this is just a phase, it doesn't mean anything that children do this. It still hurts, genuinely. Today, I want to give the honest professional picture of what parent preference happens and why. What's actually driving it developmentally, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and most importantly, what the parent on the receiving end of the rejection actually needs to hear. Because I think this is one of those topics that doesn't get talked about honestly enough. And the silence around it leaves a lot of parents carrying a hurt that they don't need to carry. Let's get into it. Parent preference, sometimes called the mummy phase or daddy phase, though it can go either way, is a completely normal developmental phenomenon that most families with young children experience at some point. It refers to a period where a baby or toddler consistently and clearly prefers one parent over the other for comfort, settling, play and connection. The preferred parent can do everything right. The non-preferred parent can do everything right as well. And the child still reaches for one and pushes the other one away. It is not a reflection, though, of parenting quality. It is not a reflection of the relationship between the non-preferred parent of the child, and it is almost always temporary. Understanding what's driving it developmentally is the starting point for everything else. For the preferred parent who is exhausted by being the only one who can do anything, and for the non-preferred parent who is hurting and confused. So now let's get into the developmental reasons why it happens. So reason one is something called attachment theory and primary caregiving. The most common driver of parent preference is simply who does the most primary caregiving. The parent who does the majority of the feeding, settling, nappy changes, bedtime routines, and day-to-day care is naturally the person the child's nervous system most associates with safety and regulation. This is attachment theory in practice. Children form their strongest attachments to the person who is most consistently responsive to their needs. When that person is predominantly one parent, often but not always the mother, particularly if one parent has been on parental leave, the preference for that parent is a natural consequence. This isn't about love. This is about nervous system regulation. The primary caregiver's presence literally regulates the child's stress response, their smell, their voice, their touch. All of it signals safety at a biological level. Okay, so reason number two, developmental stages that actually amplify preference. There are specific developmental windows where parent preference, seems to intensify. Understanding these windows helps because they predict when preference is most likely and reassures you that it will pass. The first window is roughly 8 to 18 months. This is when object permanence develops, the understanding that things and people exist even when they can't be seen. As babies become aware that their preferred parent can leave, they become more clingy and more rejecting of the non-preferred parent. The second window is roughly 2 to 3 years. Toddlers at this age are simultaneously asserting their independence and their need for security. Parent preference at this stage is often about control. Choosing who they want is one of the few things that a toddler can genuinely control in a world where most things happen to them. The third window is any period of significant change or stress, starting childcare, a new sibling, moving house, illness. Any disruption to routine can intensify preference as the child seeks extra security from their most trusted person. So reason three, the novelty factor and why this can confuse things. Here's something that surprises a lot of parents. Parent preference doesn't always go to the primary caregiver. Sometimes it goes the other way. Some children go through phases of preferring the parent they actually see less. The exciting one, the novel one, the one who arrives home and plays differently to the parent who's been managing the routine all day. This is equally normal and can be equally just as painful, particularly for primary caregivers who feel that all their hard work and is invisible when that parent who does less gets all the enthusiasm. Understanding that novelty can drive preference just as much as primary caregiving helps make sense of what can feel like deeply unfair dynamics. And the fourth reason, temperament and sensory preferences. Sometimes the preference comes down to a temperament match. A highly sensitive child might prefer the calmer, quieter parent. An energetic child may prefer the physical, playful parent. A child going through a particular sensory phase might respond differently to each parent's smell, voice, or touch. These temperament, based preferences are some of the most least discussed, and yet they're genuinely real. They're also some of the most temporary. As the child's sensory processing develops and their temperament expression evolves, the preference often shifts naturally. Now, I want to speak to the parent on the receiving end of the preference right now. The one who gets pushed away. The one whose child cried for the other parent. The one who comes home and feels invisible. What you're feeling is real. The sting of rejection from your own child, even when you know rationally it's developmental, is a genuine emotional experience that deserves acknowledgement. You don't have to pretend that it doesn't hurt, but I want you to hold this alongside that hurt. Your child's preference for your partner right now is not a verdict on your relationship with your child. It is not evidence that you've done something wrong. It is not a sign that your child loves you less. It is a snapshot of a developmental moment that will change. The parent who gets rejected during the preference phase and keeps showing up, keeps doing the bedtime routine even when the child asks for the other parent, keeps offering comfort when it's initially refused, keeps being present without taking the rejection personally. That parent is building something that the child cannot see yet, but will feel for the rest of their lives. One of the reasons I'm doing this video today is we are going through the exact same thing with our youngest at the moment. Literally, if me and my partner pick her up at Childcare, if mum walks in first, she'll hold her hands out for a cuddle and she'll run right round her and jump into my arms. Phrases such as, "No, go away, mummy, I want daddy," really breaks it up. But she kept turning up. She kept showing up. She kept showing love even when she was rejected. It's getting better. It now seems to be that she prefers me during business hours and now doesn't want me at night time and just wants mummy. So we're getting there. This phase is slowly, we're getting out of it. And yes, the preference passes. The relationship remains. And the child who pushed you away at 2 will reach for you at 12 when something is wrong at school. The foundation you're building right now, even in the rejecting phase, is real. I also want to speak to the preferred parent because the preference phase has its own challenges from your side too. Being the preferred parent is exhausting. You're the one who can't leave the room without a meltdown. You're the one who has to do every drop-off, every bedtime, every settling. You're the one whose partner feels shut out and whose child creates enormous pressure on you by refusing everyone else. Some preferred parents too feel guilty about being preferred. Some feel resentful because of the pressure it creates. Some feel trapped by their child's need for them in a way that makes it impossible to get any space. All of those feelings are valid as well. Being preferred is not always the easier position. What helps? Being genuinely encouraging of your child's relationship with your partner, even when the child resists. Actively creating opportunities for your partner to be the one who helps, and being willing to step back and let the preference phase do its work even when your child protests. The more you can support that relationship, the faster the preference will naturally balance out. So let's get into what actually helps. Some practical strategies. First of all, for the non-preferred parent, keep showing up consistently, warmly, without making the preference a bigger deal than it is. The more you withdraw in response to rejection, the more entrenched the preference becomes. Find your lane. Every parent has something that they do differently to the other. Find the thing that your child particularly enjoys with you specifically. A particular game, a particular routine, a particular way of playing, and make those things yours. Build your relationship in the spaces where the preference is less intense. Don't compete. Don't try to outdo the preferred parent or make the child choose. That creates pressure the child doesn't need and usually deepens the preference. Give it time. Most preference phases resolve naturally within weeks to months without any intervention at all. Your consistent, warm presence is the most powerful thing that you can offer. For the preferred parent, step back intentionally. Create situations where your partner is going to be the one who helps, comforts, and connects. When the child protests, "Daddy is going to do bedtime tonight and I'll see you in the morning," said warmly and confidently. Hold the boundary with love. Don't rescue immediately either. When your child protests your partner's care, give it a moment before stepping in. Your immediate rescue reinforces the message that the non-preferred parent can't manage. Talk to your partner too about how they're feeling. The preference phase can quietly damage a relationship if it goes unacknowledged. Check in, validate, remember that you're a team. And for both parents, don't make it a talking point in front of the child. "She always wants mummy," said in the child's hearing, even warmly, reinforces the preference as an identity. Children live up to the stories that we tell them. Remember that it is temporary. Often, almost every parent preference phase resolves. The child who only wants mummy at 2 often becomes the child who only wants daddy at 4. These things shift. Your job is to keep the relationship strong on both sides while they do. Most parent preference is completely normal and resolves without any intervention. But I want to give you a clear picture of when it's worth taking more seriously. Worth investigating further. Preference that is extreme and shows no signs of easing after several months. A child who is genuinely distressed rather than just momentarily protesting with the non-preferred parent. Preference that seems to be intensifying rather than naturally easing. And in preference that is accompanied by other signs of anxiety or developmental concern. In those situations, a conversation with your doctor or GP or a child psychologist is worthwhile. Not because something is definitely wrong, but because getting a professional eye on the situation gives you better information than just worrying alone. Parent preference is one of the most common and least talked about experiences in early parenting. It's normal, it's temporary, and it carries emotional weight for both parents that deserves more acknowledgement than it usually gets. To the rejected parent, keep showing up. The relationship you're building right now matters even when it feels like it doesn't. To the preferred parent, step back intentionally and support the other relationship. You're not helping your child by being the only one who can do everything. And to both of you, this phase will pass. The toddler who only wants one parent at 2 will be the child who needs both of you in ways that you can't predict yet. The foundation you're both building right now is what makes that possible. The free printable guide is in the description below. Everything from this video in one practical reference for both parents. And look, if this video helped you today, please hit subscribe. There's so much more coming. And if you know a family going through a preference phase right now, send this to them. They might really need it. And don't forget, as always, let's all walk in love and peace.